wonderful microphone. So if you're whispering to your neighbor, so I want to take a minute to remind us of things that we already know when we are working in meetings, and particularly when we're doing the kind of work that we're doing and understanding that we are dealing in many cases with fragile communities. And so we want to remember as we are doing our work that we listen actively and to be present. And part of being present is a request that you put your cell phones on buzz. Remember, the buzz is loud into the microphone. So, because everyone understands that in this modern day, technology is important. If you ask me to go without my cell phone, I might get heart palpitations. But I can at least not have it be there for everyone to hear. Share the airtime. Give time for people to think about a thought. Speak your truth. That's really hard. It's hard because it's not a norm in our society to speak our truth. It is a norm in our society to speak kind of a little bit about our truth and make sure that we don't say it in a way that could offend anybody, so we might not actually get to what we're saying. So in this work, I actually encourage you to have the courage to potentially offend someone so that you can actually say what it is. And I would encourage everyone else to be lenient and to hear what the intent of the comment is, and try not to put lenses and judgment on the words that have been selected, but try to probe for the meaning and the intent. Be brief and meaningful. I hope all of you picked up a little bit of a packet. I made a lot of little colors, so hopefully you were drawn to a color that was happy for you today. In your packet, there are two cards that say the blueprint on one side, but the card I want you to take a look at is the one that has 3 questions on it. And thanks to Kevin from the Trailhead team who had this, and I stole it. It is a good idea to steal good things. So I won't read it to you, but I would encourage you to read those questions and keep them in mind as we move through the meeting. The next 2 cards that you'll see, reading, listening, writing, doing, these are different ways that people like to receive information. And I tried to do better with the watching, because a lot of times the videos, it's just, 90-second video saves me a lot of time. I'm not a fast reader, good reader, but I'm not fast. And so sometimes that works for me. So I want you, as we break into work groups, don't be afraid to set this out in front of you to help the other people in your team kind of get a sense of how you best receive information. This is a really important card. Yes, and we could also. So many times people come up with an idea and our response is, yeah, we tried that in 1988. And such, well, 1988 was a really long time ago. I tried to do a Zoom meeting in 1988. It didn't go so well. It wasn't there. So remember that if it was tried in the past and it didn't work, it may have been there were circumstances that prevented it from being successful. So every idea is a good idea, and this is good to just hang on to. And it's also good in relationship building to affirm. You heard what somebody said, you heard their idea, and you want to say yes. And then you can embellish it, and if you believe you can improve it, do so at that point. A couple of other things that I would have you be cognizant of, and it will be very, very hard, and this is particularly for our remote users. Don't forget to take a moment and address them. Do any of you out there in Zoom land have questions so far?
No.
And you have to wait a long time because people in Zoom land are very respectful. They have mute on because the Christmas carols are playing in the background or whatever it is that they're doing in the background. So when you ask a question, be patient enough to give them an opportunity to answer. That's true regardless of whether we're working remotely or not. Not everybody is Johnny on the spot to answer your question. So if you ask a question, it really is okay to wait a minute and let people answer. So these are just quick reminders of what you already knew, and it just helps to be reminded of them and to remember, speak your truth. Let people speak their truth. We will get the most out of our collective work by really listening. So thank you. Thank you, people in Zoom land. Oh, thank you. I didn't introduce my team. I am so sorry. Joining me today is Christine Alonso, who will also be working today. And I should also very quickly say what our role is today. We are just around. We are around to help if you feel like you're stuck in some place. As you look around the room, it doesn't necessarily reflect those who we are trying to reach out to. So if you have a question that can't be answered in your group, or you need some ideas about how to get those questions answered, Christine and I are on hand today to help you a little bit with that. It's what I call patting the afro. Do you guys may not, how many of you guys had afro? Okay, so when you have an afro, you have to make your afro perfect, okay? Not like today, in the old days. It had to be perfect, and every once in a while, two little naps were just like, so you just pat your afro, and then you're good to go. And so that's what it is. We're just here to help a little bit pat the work that you are already undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadija, for helping us set the stage this morning. I just have to tell you how excited I am to be here. We have been working on this project, lots of us, for a long time. So it's really exciting to be here because I know we're going to get down to work and help improve the state of food security for folks across the state. So thank you for being here. What I'd like to do now is just go around and do quick introductions of everybody who's in the room and who's joining us remotely so that we can just get a sense of who's here with us today before we move on to our next step. So what I'd love for you to do is share your name. If you have an affiliation you'd like to share as part of you being here today, you can do that with us. And maybe just a really quick sentence about why this is the work group for you. So I think we'll start with our friends who are on the phone. So let's start with Melody.
Hi, this is Melody Dowell. I am the program director at Care Share Food Bank located in Colorado Springs.
So thank you, Melody, and it was really, really hard to hear you. Is there any way, we're trying to ramp up our volume in the room. Could you say that again in your loudest outside voice possible?
Yeah, I was just saying that I am the new programs director at Care Share Food Bank located in Colorado Springs. I started here about 3 months ago.
Great, and why is this the work group for you, Melody?
We have a SNAP program, and so we're definitely looking to increase our enrollment numbers, and it's part of our SNAP contract with the state. So I'm excited to see that this is a part of the blueprint.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We could hear you much better that time.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Great. So we'll go to Lane.
Hi, everyone. This is Lane Sabowski. I am the new Food Systems Administrator with the Denver Department of Public Health and the Environment, leading a newly expanding food team. This is definitely the work group for me because I really feel like SNAP and WIC issues are at the basis of a lot of the other policy work that we do around healthy food access, education, and equity. So I think there's a lot of foundational work around SNAP and WIC that we need to do in order to advance these other priorities as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Lane. Michelle.
Did you say Michelle?
I did. Michelle, you're on.
Sorry, you cut out partway. This is Michelle Trujillo. I'm with Mesa County Department of Human Services. And this is a group for me because I oversee the SNAP program here in Mesa County, and I'm also actively engaged with an effort to localize the blueprint for our area.
Great. Thank you for joining us today, Michelle. And Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Robinson with Mesa County Public Health. I am Michelle's counterpart on the other side of the building. I like to look at the data side and work on the big picture strategies to complement Michelle's staff's work, boots on the ground.
Great, thank you. There's a couple of folks who I don't have a name for. There's a 303-363 number.
Hi, yeah, that's Kathy Smith with Arapahoe County, and I have Maureen Alexander here as well with Arapahoe County. She'll be representing me on this work group over the next few months while I'm out of the office on maternity leave. But I am the division manager of our community and child support services here in Arapahoe County, and Maureen is a program administrator over our programs here, and we oversee our eligibility for food assistance among many other programs. So of course, this is a work group for us to try to work together to collaborate and make sure that we're increasing our enrollment, because that's something that's really important to us as well.
Great. Thank you. I have something that says SO0272. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Cindy, that's me as well. I don't know. This is Kathy. I don't know why it's showing me logged in twice, but.
Okay. That's, well, because there are two of you on the phone, probably. Maybe that's it. Okay, anybody else remotely that I haven't reached out to introduce themselves? Great, thank you all for joining us. We'll start our in-room introduction. So we've met Courtney, we've met Alexis. So Monica, you are on, my friend.
My name is Monica Bulick, and I am with Centura Health. And as a healthcare provider, we are often looking to see how we can support people who are struggling with food access, because that is a core to making sure that people can be healthy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Stenmark. I'm a pediatrician now with the University of Colorado. I'm here because I think maximizing both SNAP and WIC have been demonstrated to improve health, prevent chronic disease, and decrease healthcare costs. And in our state, so many Medicaid members are not enrolled. And so if we could figure out how to maximize enrollment, it would help improve health and health equity in our state.
Good morning, Todd Jorgensen. I'm Deputy Executive Director for Assistance Programs at Denver Human Services. This is the work group for me because within my responsibility, we administer eligibility for SNAP for Denver County, being the largest county in Colorado. We have about 450 employees, half of which, in my group, half of which work directly with Denver residents in the enrollment in SNAP. And we touch 1 in 3 Denver residents. And so we have the goal of increasing our SNAP enrollment because about 65% of those that are eligible and enrolled is not good enough for us. So we aspire to more. And I want to learn how to do that through this work group.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Ornelas, and I'm with HICPA. I am the Eligibility and Communication Stakeholder Engagement Specialist. And this is a work group for me because, well, Medicaid is probably the most used program, government program. And so we want to make sure that we are maximizing our benefits and then making sure that we provide any resources that are available to our members. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elisa Zigmont. I'm the Director of Programs at Benefits Data Trust. We operate the Colorado Benefits Center here. And we are, this is the right work group for me because BDP is an organization committed to transforming the way people in need access benefits and services. And we have a couple of programs around SNAP and WIC here in Colorado, and we just want to make sure that we're effectively coordinating and troubleshooting and problem solving with other wonderful advocates around the state.
I'm Heather Benninghoven. I'm also with Benefits Data Trust as the program coordinator for our Colorado work. And this is the work group for me because, as Elisa said, we are transforming benefits access. And as a state outreach partner, just connecting with those other organizations within the state to really bolster our support to Colorado and, you know, supporting them as much as possible.
Great. Anything you want to add, Christine?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking. Yeah, I wanted to just add that I am the president and CEO of Red Tail Hawk Consulting. And in a previous life, I ran a couple of nonprofits, one in Southern Colorado, and most recently, I was the executive director of the Colorado Latino Leadership Advocacy Research Organization. So I do have a pulse of the needs of the community and the Latino community, and I have my expertise in that field. So thank you.
I will add that when I take off the hat that you just saw, I sit among you as a board member of the Montbello Organizing Committee, which is heavily engaged in working on numerous issues around food access, food systems, cultural systems, on and on, in the far Northeast. So this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart.
I'm Patty Velasquez. I am with the Family Resource Center Association, and this is the work group for us because we feel that Family Resource Centers play a big role in the community and can help the work that we're trying to accomplish.
I don't think so. Thanks.
My name is Erin Hendrick. I work with CPHE in the WIC program as a nutrition consultant, and I do outreach and engagement, and some of that involves trying to increase enrollment of SNAP households who are eligible for WIC, but not yet.
Hi, I'm Anya with Hunger Free Colorado. This is the work group for me because before I joined our policy department, I worked for a year and a half as a navigator on our hotline and in the field. So I've helped a lot of people apply for SNAP and get connected to WIC, and I'm hoping to bring that perspective.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jack Reaganbogen. I'm an attorney and policy advocate with Colorado Center on Law and Policy. This is the work group for me because we are very eager to help Colorado become one of the top states in the country for SNAP and WIC enrollment. Happy to be here.
Great, thanks. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. Back up to my microphone here. Thank you, everyone, for giving that brief introduction. I think it's helpful to know who's in the room and what kind of strengths we're all bringing to the table. So I appreciate that very much. As this is our first time together this morning, I wanted to walk through a couple of items that Courtney had sent out in advance of the meeting. Again, a lot of these, at least today, and some of the information you've gotten in advance is to help us kind of set the structure that we can build all of our future work upon. So I wanted to cover a couple of items really briefly. I'm actually, Michelle, going to ask you to come up and talk a little bit about the communications infrastructure. We're talking about this today, and we have had this as an integral piece of this process all along, as the communications is critical to all of our work, and we want you all to know the ways in which communications will be supporting the work groups and the blueprint overall. And Michelle's just going to quickly talk through the outline as we know it now. This may evolve in 3 or 4 months as the work groups get up and running, and as we move things forward, it could look differently, but this is what we're going to start with. I just wanted Michelle to talk through it really briefly.
Great, yeah. So for our friends on the phone and for our friends in the room, the document that says Governing Council and Workgroup Communications Infrastructure is the document I'm going to be talking from. And I'll do this really quickly because I know you don't need me to read you what you can already read yourself. But I did want to just alert you to a few of the roles that I'll be playing so that you can use my resources or ask for my resources should you need them. We've sort of broken out the communication support for all of the work groups and the Governing Council into 2 buckets. One is how we'll communicate externally in terms of the work that we're doing. The blueprint has enjoyed support from and interest from a very large group of folks, people who didn't sit at the steering committee table, but wanted to stay abreast of the work. And so in order to continue to keep them informed and keep them in our loop and keep them in our family, we will be launching, hopefully with the approval of the Governing Council, a broader newsletter that will go out to that entire group as well as others who have been joining us over social media over the last several months and years, to just keep them abreast, let them know about new ideas that are coming out of the work groups or other work that we ought to highlight. The hope is to launch that as soon as the Governing Council has given us their approval on that. The second external effort that has been ongoing since the blueprint launched a while ago is a social media effort to just make people aware that the blueprint does exist and to help them engage with us and endorse the blueprint and those sorts of pieces. That is ongoing and will continue as long as no plans change in terms of other work groups that may want to address this in a different way. The internal communication support that I am here to provide now and would be happy to build on to should you feel the need for that is that my job is to make sure that all of the work of all of the work groups and the Governing Council is as transparent and integrated together as possible. So I will be taking detailed minutes for every single work group meeting that occurs. All of those minutes will be publicly archived on the Blueprint site. You will receive those minutes shortly after these meetings, as well as a high-level executive summary. If you don't have time to read the 5-page document, maybe you have time to read 5 bullets. And that will be provided to every single work group member working across all the work groups, as well as the Governing Council, and again, publicly available on the website. We will also attempt to translate these minutes into a video form. You'll bear with us a little bit on how exactly that's going to look, but we do respect the fact that some folks receive information better visually than they do reading, and so we want to try to accommodate that in some fashion. So we're going to experiment with it a little bit, and we'd be happy for your feedback as you start to see that coming out. And all of the materials that I create will, with the help of Trailhead, be translated into Spanish as well, so that we accommodate those needs as well. Can I answer any other questions for you? Sandy?
Michelle, as part of the communication group responsible for developing the methods that everybody will use to, so anybody working in this field will know how to benchmark their progress against which metrics is everybody agreeing to try to move.
That's more a Governing Council role.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
Yep. So that's going to be part of the work of that group.
I would certainly hope we could contribute, our work groups could contribute some communications metrics to that conversation, but it's a big topic.
Then we're going to look at evaluation meetings.
Yeah, I should have mentioned one of the visions of one of the components that we envision having housed at the program office is some dedicated evaluation resources. So that I think is to be evolved. As Cindy said, we absolutely want that informed by the work groups, but I think the vision is to probably bring in a contract evaluator, someone who can help us think holistically about how do we measure our progress against the Blueprint goals collectively.
So just to close up my part, I would be very happy to receive any feedback that you have on the ways that you're receiving information, if it's working for you. This group internally will decide how it's going to communicate amongst itself, and I will help support that in any way you need me to. But in terms of just making sure all of the groups are aware of what they're doing and what other groups are doing and what the Governing Council is doing, that will be my primary role, to be described for all of that. So if you have feedback for me on that, or ways that you could receive the information more easily, or holes that you see in the information you're getting that you'd like to get more of, you'll let me know and I will accommodate. Thank you.
Any questions from folks joining us remotely that we didn't have a chance to tap into on the communications piece? Okay. Hearing nothing, we will move forward. Feel free to chime in though anytime you need to access us as a larger group in the room here. So the last piece before we're finally going to start to work, so thank you for your patience and your grace this morning. I wanted to talk a little bit through the goal for work groups, the expectations, the membership, the leadership, decision making, again, just to get us all level set on the same page and to prompt you with a couple of things to think about as we move through our next level of work together. We thought it was helpful to break down specifically for this work group for the goal, of course, the kinds of things we're thinking about in terms of moving that goal forward, and then some of the strategies. And we're gonna actually do the bulk of our work this morning on that piece here in a little bit. We just wanted to be clear on some of the items around work group membership in terms of responsibilities and expectations, and talk a little bit about leadership and decision making this morning as well. So this document has the blue on the front. It's being shared on the screen for those of you remotely. The responsibilities, we hope, are pretty straightforward. We just are hoping you're bringing your best thinking and your best experience to the table with us, really being committed to participating, which is fantastic. We do have expectations that folks will come regularly to meetings. The other thing I wanted to say is that this work group is not closed at this point. If there are folks that we want to make sure we engage in this specific work group, we can absolutely do that moving forward. So I don't want our expectation of folks coming regularly and contributing to mean that we aren't interested in bringing more voices to the table. Those things are going to live together in this space. But we're hoping for those of you who are starting with us now or have been working with us for months on this, that you will continue. We are offering, and Courtney will go over this at the end of the meeting because we want to grab this form from everyone. We want to make these meetings accessible and approachable and possible for as many folks as we can. So we have an offer for stipends, for transportation, for childcare, to help make it accessible and possible. So we're going to go over those at the end of the meeting, but our expectation is that we will offer that and you will be able to come regularly and help support all of this work. So just wanted to be clear on those pieces. Are there questions or thoughts as you all read through the responsibilities and the expectations on this sheet? Was there something that you were surprised that wasn't there? Or did these feel comfortable in terms of how you're thinking about coming to this work? And I know that there's a lot of words on this page. I just want to give everybody a chance to sort of think through that as well. So I'll just give another minute. So right now, just really looking at the work group member responsibilities and then the expectations. Okay, great. If you have thoughts or you'd like to share something with us outside of this large group, you can feel free to reach out to Courtney and she can pull that information together and answer any questions that might come up following this. The other two pieces I just wanted to touch on really quickly this morning are the leadership piece and the decision making. So those are the other two sort of structural items that we wanted to talk about today. When we were talking with the steering committee and developing this work group concept, one of the ideas that came up was that there would be a work group chair or a work group co-chair, however this group feels like they want to work that out, that would work side along the specific hire for this to think about progress, to think about meeting agendas, to think about who else we need at the table, to help guide the work a little bit for this specific work group. This person may be consulting with other groups as we think about goal one, which is sort of changing how we think and feel about food security in the state. I think this group may have some interactions with that piece. There may be some policy pieces that come out of this, and that work group chair might be asked to be involved in thinking about what the policy agenda looks like. So it may be a little bit more responsibility than coming to the meetings regularly and contributing, as all of you will. So I just want you to think about that, how you have seen that work well in the past, and we're going to circle back to this in a little bit. I just kind of want to prompt folks now to be thinking about, A, is this something you might be interested in? Is this a role where you think your talents could really bring a lot to the table? Would this group like to have co-chairs? So depending on how the work breaks out, is SNAP and WIC going to look differently? Is it not? How does that come together? How do we want to think about that? So I just want to sort of put that in the back of your mind as we work through these next few steps. And like I said, we'll circle back to that here before the end of the meeting. But we would like to have some more discussion about that this morning. So think about that as we go through our next pieces of conversation. So the final piece that I want to just touch base on this sheet is the decision making. And this is something that we did our best to utilize during the process of getting us here today, to really try to build consensus-based decision making. And what we mean by that and how we tried to move through that in our previous discussions are getting folks to a place where even if they weren't super excited about something, that they could live with it as part of the decision-making process. So everything that comes out of this work group may not be the best idea you think you've ever heard, but if it's something you can live with and there's momentum in other pieces of the group, we hope that you feel like you could support that. If there are still lots of folks on the opposite side of that spectrum, we'll try to work through the issue a little bit more and have some more discussion to get to a place where folks can feel comfortable. What we'd really like to avoid is any kind of up and down vote on things. I think that creates some divisiveness that we're really trying to stay away from. These groups, so in my experience to date, have worked well collaboratively and working through those issues to come to this consensus-based place. So this is where we'd like to start, but I wanted to open that up to the group for any discussion or thoughts as we begin our work together. So I want to make sure we're comfortable with that as our decision-making framework, or if there's a discussion that we'd like to have that before we move forward. All right, well, hearing nothing, we will move forward with that for now. We'll see, again, I have great faith that we can make all of this work and that we will be collaborative in our discussions. Are there any other questions on kind of the work group roles and responsibilities sheet as I think of it? And then we're really going to get down to it. So don't want to cut this off, but I also know that this has been a lot, and I appreciate that. So I want to get us moving forward if there isn't anything else pertinent today. And again, if you have thoughts or questions about this after the meeting, this afternoon, next week, please feel free to reach out to Courtney. She can answer questions. We can utilize this moving forward. All right, fantastic. Well, I think what was one of the really exciting things for me in hearing Alexis again today is how much has actually happened, particularly in this goal, I think, in the last few months. And so I'm really excited both about the progress we've made, what we have left to do, and thinking about how this group can come together to really do that work well. So as I was thinking yesterday about specifically this goal and what we've accomplished and the kinds of things that we still need to make progress on, I'm not going to do this with every group, but I thought it might be helpful here today to have folks, if there are other updates or other work in progress specifically in these two areas under the strategies that we have listed here, and we'll get to what other strategies we want to add, so don't think we aren't going to do that. But sort of in terms of the how we get there portion of the document that we have, which were kind of the initial strategy. So it starts with improved SNAP and WIC outreach and delivery to all eligible Coloradans, et cetera. And there are 6 bullets there. I wonder if we might take just a few minutes, again, if you have something that you know is happening, or if there's work you are specifically doing on any of these 6 things. I'm going to try to capture this because I want us to have a sense of what's happening today. We have the list of what we've accomplished, which is great. So we are checking off item number 2. So there's really 5 here that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to try to capture, and I know Michelle will help me with her great notes about things that we may not know about, or the work that you all are doing, because part of what we want to do in these work groups is capture what's happening, where can we leverage and build momentum, and then figure out what else we need to build. So those are the kinds of things I want us to think about for the next hour, a little less than an hour today, because we've got a couple other wrap-up things. What can we leverage and build on? And then what else do we need to be adding to this list? So if you all will humor me, I think in this group particularly would be helpful to think about these other 5 strategies you may or may not have something to add, and that's fine. We're just going to do this kind of popcorn. And I'm going to try to capture this up on the board, and then we're going to split into some small groups and have some other discussions about what we capture up here. So for those of you doing specific work, tell me what that looks like for these pieces, please.
I can, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I can start off. So at Hunger Free Colorado and in partnership with CCLP, we're working to really sort of maintain a feedback loop between our SNAP outreach program and our policy work. And what that looks like, I'm in pretty constant contact with our navigators, and we're collecting case issues and stories about barriers. And every couple months meeting with the SNAP team at CDHS and sharing that. And then it's evolved a little bit into working with them on some regulatory changes. So an example of that we're really excited about, there's a rule change packet that will be going before a week from today. And it's mostly a technical cleanup, but there's an inclusion of a medical mileage reimbursement rate that would increase medical deductions for some clients. So until now, if you were with a disability or an older adult, you could claim medical deductions to perhaps raise your benefit amount. And you could use mileage as part of that. But the mileage reimbursement rate they were using was the IRS medical rate, which is about 17 cents per mile. And they're going to be changing that to the commercial rate, which will be 54 cents a mile. So I think especially in rural communities, that's really exciting. It'll help people get the standard medical deduction. And we think that would probably go into effect March 1st. But that's something that I would love to publicize when it happens. And then there's also sort of a larger rule rewrite process taking place that I think is still set for mid-2019. So right now they're having county work group meetings, and I participated in one of those. Jack will be participating, and at a later date when they have a draft, because there isn't a draft yet, there should be an opportunity for stakeholders to weigh in. And I think that would be a really good opportunity for folks in this group to plug in.
Great, thank you.
I work with the WIC program, and we have a couple of technology projects that we're working on. One is we'll have a statewide WIC referral form, so healthcare providers and community partners that's Hunger Free can submit referrals to WIC online that our clinics will get, and then they can contact potentially eligible families or individuals. So that will be actually going live on December 3rd, so Monday. And we're also working with SNAP or BDT on a SNAP outreach project, texting SNAP households that are potentially eligible for WIC but not yet enrolled in Colorado, texting messages about potential enrollment in WIC. And if they're interested and reply, then we get the referral information and we can contact these families. We're doing that. And we also, about 2 years ago, we integrated into the Colorado Peak online application. And we're integrated in such a way that we can catch people who may already have an account and are adding a baby, letting them know if they're not enrolled, they may be eligible. So we're integrated kind of all throughout the application in various ways to sort of catch people. And then when we get their referral information again, we can contact them. Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, this is Jack from CCLP. This isn't a policy development, but it's a resource that I'm really excited about, which we created. It's a SNAP calculator, and it's Colorado specific. And so this tool is something that people can use, and they plug in their income and their expense information, and it tells them down to the specific dollar amount how much they should be eligible to receive in SNAP per month. And so this is really helpful if a client gets a letter reducing their benefits and they want to double check to see if that's accurate, or even if they just want to double check their current benefit allotment and make sure that they're maximizing it. It's gapmap.org/calculator. And I hope that this can be helpful, and if you have partners that you would want to share it with, we'd really appreciate that. Thanks.
Jack, will that have the medical in it? I mean, can you?
It does. It does. So the calculator allows someone to indicate if they're an older adult or if they have a disability, and if so, then they can put in their medical expenses.
I'll chime in and just add a few things, and I'm going to apologize. I have to take my 3-year-old to the doctor, so I'm not being rude. I just do have to leave legitimately. I just wanted to mention a couple other strategic grants that the Health Foundation has made that we're excited about. We recently made a grant to CCLP to add a new staff member to work on SNAP advocacy in addition to Jack. So that's aimed at increasing the advocacy capacity here in the state. We also have launched a new funding opportunity that was open in October and will be open moving forward, specific around advocacy. So our hope is that we will be able to get more organizations engaged in the food access and security advocacy work. There may be some more directed funding, again, with input from the workers, but that's another resource that's available. We also have a WIC funding opportunity underway, and I'm just trying to get the total number of WIC sites that we are funding, but we do have a cohort looking at improving communications as well as outreach and enrollment to WIC families. So I think that's showing some really promising progress, and I've been evaluating I think those are the main two things, and then I do think this rule rewrite coming forward next year is a big opportunity for all of us around the table to think about how we engage and give input to that process. Great. So, and thank you all for being here, and I'm sorry I have to leave.
Since Alexis mentioned it, we're currently accepting applications for that SNAP advocate position. So if you go onto our website, cclponline.org, you'll see that job posting.
So Tara, you have
Yeah, just wanted to share, Dr. Stenmark, Sandy and I are both co-chairing an effort that's very much aligned with the blueprint in Denver. It's supported by Hunger Free Colorado and some national conveners, FRAC and the Food Trust, and then Target is sponsoring it. So we are very specifically focused on increasing SNAP enrollment in Denver. And we've been meeting for about a year now, and we are just about a couple weeks away from releasing our final report, which will include, I think, several recommendations that, again, are very much in alignment with the goals and objectives of this effort, and could either support or maybe even provide some best practice ideas around what we're trying to do. We had a great cross-coalition of about 40 different members, including Jack and I think others that have been involved in the blueprint. And so we're also, one of the recommendations is to figure out how to keep that work going. So I'm taking that on specifically. So there's that. I don't know if Sandy has anything to add to that. And then just more of a broad thing, Denver Human Services is also working on our strategic plan update, and it is very much focused on improving our integrated service delivery model, or in many cases, having one. That, of course, includes, so that's really about kind of figuring out ways to better collaborate with community partners to make impacts kind of at the population level, and that absolutely includes health and food security. So if it's appropriate and relevant at some time during our work in this work group, I'd love to maybe share some more information about that and how it's all.
Thank you.
So, other initiative that the Colorado Prevention Alliance is working on is to work with, leverage the WIC learnings and what we've learned from Hunger Free Colorado, Benefit Data Trust, Care and Share, on models for food insecurity screening and enrollment in SNAP and WIC. And so what are the best practices? What are the barriers? What do we need to improve? The Colorado Department of Public Health is also working on that with us, and certainly anyone who would like to see the document and edit it, that those thoughts would be more than welcome.
Great, thank you. How about anyone joining us remotely? I want to make sure we create some space.
Hey, this is Lane. So I was mentioned a little bit earlier, but obviously the 302 initiative is going to have a huge impact on the amount of funding that's available for fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy food. And there is a lot that still has to be figured out about how that will be managed and what particular types of programs will be eligible. But there's potentially interaction with WIC, given that the initiative is directly aimed at children specifically, and low-income children specifically. So while there's a lot for us to figure out, and I can't really speak to the specifics as of yet, it's a huge opportunity. I just want to keep on everyone's radar.
Great, thank you.
This is Rebecca with HICPA, and currently HICPA has put together a Member Experience Advisory Council, and so we are working with our members. We have a board that we try to find out what is it that they need. Is it the language barrier? Is it the notices that we send out? What are the types of things that we can do to help their experience and then help them get enrolled in other benefits? And so then that leads to changing PEAK, the language in PEAK, adding additional information into PEAK. So if they are eligible for other programs such as WIC or food assistance, then that'll pop up in PEAK and say, hey, based on the information you provided, these are additional services that could be offered. And so we do get together once a month with our members, and we rotate the members out. You know, we let them stay on for a year and we get their input. But I feel that because of that, we have rewritten a lot of our notices, a lot of our letters, and then a lot of PEAK language has been changed, and other programs offered.
How many members are on that?
Right now, we have 20.
This is Elisa from BDT. I just wanted to share with support from the Colorado Health Foundation and also Next 50 Initiative. BDT is going to be working really closely with CDHS as well as the SNAP outreach partners. But we're going to be putting out a technology that allows individuals to client-facing, that allows individuals to do a really quick eligibility check for SNAP. And also the main focus of this technology is really to help them find where they can get assistance the way they would like. So for example, there will be 3 sort of tiers. One is if you would like to self-serve, we're going to be linking them to PEAK and providing them with an opportunity to get ongoing text reminders to say, oh, you know, did you get it? Did you have any trouble accessing the site? Do you have any questions? And it gives them the opportunity to access support if they're having challenges. The second sort of option will be if they need some phone support to apply, and they'll be able to access you know, BDT's Colorado Benefit Center to do that. And then the third will be, you know, if you would like in-person support. So we're going to be building up organizations across the state that would like to include their information on this technology tool in order to be able to receive some qualified leads. We're really hoping to be able to plug it into our outreach. Currently, BDT works with CDHS and HICPA, frankly, to take Medicaid data, cross it with the SNAP enrollment files to see who may be eligible and unenrolled in SNAP, and we send out letters. What we really want to do is do some testing to see if we send out via text a link to this binder, whether we'll be able to help people connect more broadly to the kind of support that's necessary for them, not just phone support. So we're just in sort of the beginning stages of this, and we'll hope to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different folks around how we can make this new technology as successful as possible.
Great, thank you. So are there folks remotely who wanted to chime in?
This is Michelle in Mesa County. We've been working locally to strengthen our volunteer base in the community to do application assistance where people are. And so we've been looking into Peak Pro, and we've built a job description, and we're gathering a group of interested volunteers right now. So we're in the really early stages, but we're excited about that. Just to have more people out in the community who can assist people with access to the program, to SNAP.
Great, thank you. Anybody else remotely?
Hi, I just have a question. Everything that I've been hearing here today is amazing. However, it's all very technology driven, and when you think about communities of color and there's that digital divide. And so my question is, how can some advocacy groups or community organizations help with eliminating or closing that digital divide gap? And how are your agencies using the technology that you have to provide better services to those that don't have that technology?
Thank you. I think that's a great segue. I feel like we're wrapping up a little bit sort of what's actively happening, which is great. So this is a great segue. So what I'd like to have us do now, and I'm really relying on all of your super smart brains today, break into groups of maybe 3 or 4 folks. So if you're in a like agency, find someone who's not from your agency. Feel free to move chairs around, get up, grab a drink, grab an orange, whatever you need to do. And I'd like you to think about what we just talked about. Look at the 5 strategies that we haven't yet checked off this list. And we're going to spend a few minutes thinking about how we might leverage some of these pieces that are happening, and think about how else we can be reaching out to folks, what other tools might be beneficial, or how could these tools be adapted, or what of these are those pieces that might not be quite technology driven. So take a second, get up, find 3 or 4 friends, 2 or 3 friends, and think about how we can leverage this work, and then we're going to transition into talking about what other strategies we want to think about building on for the future. But let's start with leveraging some of the stuff we talked about today, and some of the strategies and pieces here that we've talked about when we developed the blueprint.
And can I just say too, for the folks that are on the phone, thank you. For the folks that are on the phone, we are going to put you all in a breakout room so you guys can talk amongst each other without getting the background with all of us in the room. So just bear with us while we do that.
So we're going to take about 15 minutes for this. So there are bathrooms straight across the lobby too, if that is important for you at this point in time. But there's beverages, there's snacks. So that's find a group. We're going to take 15 minutes to talk about how we can leverage some of the great work that's happening now.
All right, everyone on the phone, you'll be put into a room. So hold on one moment.
I mean, maybe should. Probably should.
Nice to see you.
I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll split up.
Yeah. And then, press that red button.
I'll stay with you. I remember people also called it.
Oh, you're going all around, because I wanted to make sure we addressed your question, so we will.
We don't need a break.
Yeah. So I think one of our members. So your point was just all the discussion about things that are happening in technology.
Right.
We did the same thing for us, which was first, why We're starting.
Much better than
Process first.
trying to like turn those on, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there, that was.
Yeah.
Wherever you went. Yeah, at least they're.
Hi, I'm Heather. Mom and Kat, nice to meet you.
I'm Jack. We're with different organizations, we work together.
Yeah, definitely. For example,
And it was nice, yeah.
Oh, whatever you prefer.
Totally. I think we're still on it. I was saying, like a rainy day. Yeah.
Somebody saved me from these shots.
Oh.
Save us real quick. If here, I'll save you, I'll get you.
So I know.
What do you mean, where we gonna be chatting about? Great.
Oh, thank you.
You read our bio.
You got our group?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's like everyone's breaking.
I know.
I was talking about, what were you? So
Well done. Well, yeah, absolutely.
So I think everyone's back. So just a quick reminder, we're thinking about, there's lots of good work going on. How do we leverage or build upon or build momentum on kind of the things we just talked about? And then the next thing we're going to talk about at 11:30 is what are the other strategies, what are the other things we need to be thinking about? So as we think about the technology implications, increasing enrollment, some of the work that's happening, how do we leverage that? How would we build that in other communities? How would we amplify or scale that in a different way? Where do we feel like there's good energy happening that we want to push forward as opposed to like moving in a movable object, what's already rolling, that we get rolling faster? That kind of conversation around some of the things we've talked about, or if other things come up in your group, where can we really build, leverage, push that momentum forward? Any questions, clarification? Okay, and then we'll have each of you just do a quick report out. So if you can remember that, that's great. If one of you wants to jot a few notes, that would also be helpful. Your choice.
Only way to magic numbers. Folks, older, adult, or that's the fact that and results are really higher. But as I mentioned, there's other rule package. I know. Probably won't be finalized. Okay. It's gonna be looking at all of the SNAP. Pretty much the SNAP rules. It's gonna provide for this group. CCLP, where we have about 4 or 5 priorities. SNAP, composition, a lot of traditional family composition. Very clear to the applicant or the client, they should include someone as a family member, and that results in overpayments, fraud allegations, So there's a folks that they're they're not trying to do this bad, but it's update the office about change in circumstances as a result of the federal law. The state has discretion cap claims at 1 year, meaning that they wouldn't more than 1 year's worth.
And identify that.
Right now it's 7.
Yeah, I don't think we.
Yeah, so we have a ton up there. All right. Right. Yeah. That's like what I appreciate the line. Right. Right.
And I think it's the kind of situation like a road traffic
that we're learning together.
If you get contacted about it later, you have to pay that back. That doesn't regardless of whether or not you're eligible. So there's lots of about it or what to do with them, like you're going to be necessarily going to say like branch because a lot is related, but to get to update or get options, we have line areas that we can take the whole action period. Like start like periods of long and there are the negative store that we're
able to differentiate between
oh, yeah.
I think that's kind of my I got right? The end users should get by me. Really?
Yeah, that's something that
yeah, that's interesting. I think I would a regular day like something that was kind of that snack or snack or like for like doesn't always get sometimes people are interested. So yeah, my friend will say it too. Snap advocate, right? Yeah. Honestly. So I was work with accounting and interact with the users are actually saying that we have someone Right. That should be like before anything even moves forward, like just and like advice, right? And then pass, right? Yeah, there it is. There's thinking. Yeah. I'm not. Maybe go private education, right? Yeah. I think also.
Yeah, we were talking a little about,
coordinating about all of these different points of contact are here to connect them to what those users are, what's working and not. I think it's just sort of consolidate information.
And the thing also, but we have how long for
Been around for a little bit. He's updated.
Oh, yeah. Right, to aggregate it, right? And right now, their technology. And right?
Yeah, and like we do our own benefits.
Well, in the short term, let me know what you think. We really haven't gotten too much feedback. We have analytics. Is it how many people have used the site or how many? I haven't had feedback. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
When I
So we're really trying to see, like, are we seeing patterns? Are we seeing, obviously, fun with so far? It also is really interesting. Hardest time to out and
I've got pretty much no feedback for our legal services. So they
And interesting.
I know that they found it helpful. Other than that, I really haven't gotten any feedback.
Yeah, so much better.
Yeah. That's what I think.
They do at max capacity.
Yeah.
But when we're, but good, we'll get. I was always saying earlier, weird thing happens. That's really much, like, that's really what I should be. That was. Better to get it done.
There's an example of successful, I want to mention maybe the model. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, our organization.
But you also know.
Exempts people from mandatory SNAP program. They can participate on volunteers, sanctions.
When I think
SNAP, they don't participate. You know, with the acknowledgement that you don't have reliable shelter, and you made.
But if you, what we do is when we stay in all rooms, we get one person to find out about it. And now,
The policy is kind of, we have other folks that are homeless for whatever reason.
Okay, take about 1 more minute to wrap up this conversation, if you would. So share your final thoughts on how we leverage this work, and we'll reconvene here in just a second.
They would send us names of people who were sanctioned, not. Our partners at the state services wasn't about. So that was a pretty good. Direct service providers, with advocacy groups, working with state to ensure that this new policy was being appropriately. Now, in a perfect world, I might not even be involved, but direct service providers might be able to just go. Because I was really forwarding emails. But still, I think it's successful. Right.
In terms of, they're able to cut, how does that?
Yeah. Right.
One of the reasons that was successful, there is a coalition. State. I guess the idea of that group is to bridge direct service providers, groups, advocacy groups. Right. So that kind of. The holidays. A lot of issues.
No, I like your.
All right, welcome back, people on the phone. And if we can bring people back in the room, that'd be great.
And are we using the right tools?
Okay, we're going to come back to our group report out briefly. Thank you for the good discussion. I kind of popped around. You do not need to sit back down if you are comfortable standing and that works for you. Please do that. We'll give everybody just a quick chance to get resettled, and then we'll do a very brief report out from each group. So I'd like to start with our group who was sequestered on the phone together. I would just hope that someone in the group, or a couple of you, would be fine just to share any kind of themes or thoughts that rose to the top as you talked about sort of leveraging and momentum of current work.
All right, this is Kathy Smith. I guess I will chime in. There was only a few of us on the phone left to really have any discussion, but I think that some of the members are fairly new to the blueprint and obviously understanding the goal work group and all of that, goal number 4 work group. So it was kind of discussed that it would be helpful to, even though we had some great report outs prior to us breaking out that shared some ideas, it might be nice to have that formalized in some sort of document somewhere where everyone has kind of shared what they're doing, how that's working, so that the group as a whole could really kind of focus in on certain themes or certain things that have been tried, and then kind of elevate those pieces that we think would be really beneficial as a whole. But the group really felt, you know, the few of us on the phone, that it would be beneficial to have somewhere to reference, to say, hey, here's who's doing what and what has come of that.
Thank you. Yes, I am taking notes about that.
Great.
Thank you. That's great. Anything else you want to highlight from the group?
I don't have anything else, but the others that were on the phone, feel free to share what your thoughts were.
Okay, in the interest of time, we will continue to move forward so we can capture some of the other discussions. So of the groups that were in the room, who would like to start out and share a little bit about their discussion?
I could share for our group. Oh, sorry. Thank you. This is Erin Kendrick with WIC. I'll share for our group. We were just discussing that of the current work, we just kind of need better metrics and a better, just better information and data on what works, maybe what doesn't. Before sort of moving forward, in that there could be some similar type projects going on that, if they were to collaborate, might be stronger. The presence statewide, and just increasing the communication on what's available. And then really having the end user on projects or on this work group obviously would be helpful to help advise future projects. Can
you say a little more about that?
So like for WIC, we always want to have a participant, work group that we could go to and ask about policy changes that may be potential, or maybe projects that we're rolling out, and get their feedback if they're going to be the end user. But it's hard, sometimes we don't have incentives, et cetera. So that's just my example, but just sort of as we go along through this work group, it'd be nice to have, as we create strategies or ideas, the feedback from the community that we're serving.
I can share from our group. This is Anya. Jack and Patty and I spoke a lot about feedback loops as well. And we were thinking about some examples of feedback loops that have worked well. We talked a little bit about a coalition called All Families Deserve a Chance that sort of specializes in linking direct service providers with policy folks. And I think this group could also be a good opportunity to strengthen feedback loops like that. We also talked a little bit about sort of success that we've seen connecting homeless providers with folks like CCLP who can help make sure certain policies are getting implemented correctly on the ground, and that people are receiving benefits in the way they should. And I think all of that sort of comes down to improving user experience, and part of that process will mean making sure that policies get implemented and play out in a way that works for people. So we talked about sort of using this group as a way to, one, think about the best way to disseminate all of these initiatives that are happening in parallel, make sure that the people who could use them know about them, like direct service providers or navigators. And then secondly, thinking about how we can sort of maybe consolidate or expand feedback loops, because it sounds like a lot of people in this room have their own systems. And I think if we were to combine all of that knowledge, we would have a much bigger picture. Anything else to add? All right. Thank you.
I think we had one other group in the room here. I'm looking over here. I think you guys were chatting over in this area.
Yep, so this is Elisa from BDT, and I was in a group with, I'm sorry, Christine and with Todd, and we were talking about, you know, just how important it is with all of these different initiatives to remember that there is a digital divide and that there are folks that need to be served through multiple doorways, and how important it is for us to be coordinating, because you know, one solution that works for one person is not going to work for everyone. And I think there are a lot of really great efforts that are addressing all of these different issues, but we need to really work hard to connect them. We talked about ideas, you know, like for example, you know, having folks in food banks specifically, as well as, you know, that are perhaps leveraging some of this technology, or, you know, Todd has a great idea of, well, how about we just Skype right there in the food bank with folks at the local office who can help individuals apply on the spot. So just coming up with more of these creative ways to connect all of the efforts and deploy them locally, so that we're making sure that we're helping everyone in the way that's best for them. So we kind of went into the actual work and how we might begin to work together.
Great, thank you. I was saying to a couple of folks, and many of you have been through a lot of these processes before, so the beginning of all of this work always feels kind of amorphous. We're all sort of swimming through a lot of information and data and all those kinds of things. So thank you for those good discussions. I'm seeing some themes already seem to rise to the top, at least even from this initial discussion. And I think a great follow-up item for all of us in terms of really trying to gather from this group some information about who's doing what, how they're thinking about measuring it, what that looks like. So we'll figure out how we can reach out and capture that kind of information as we move forward. Let's see, we've got about 15 minutes-ish. Trying to think about the best way to use our collective time here. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Given this great conversation and thinking about what I heard as I walked around the room, because there are a lot of things happening in this space, there are a lot of things happening in the other 3 work group goals as well. And so I'd like to take just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to wrap back to our leadership conversation and how we want to think about these meetings moving forward. So I want to leave a little bit of time for that at the end. I'm wondering if, just given our discussions today, and as those of you who've been involved in projects like this before, just quick thoughts, and it doesn't have to be anything fully formed. What do you feel like is the best and highest use of this work group, given the breadth of this, given some of these themes, given what you've seen work in the past? What do we want the best, highest use of this group to be in this work? And again, this doesn't have to be fully formed, but as you've sat in here today and thought about this work, all of you, and your lives outside of this room, which is very apparent to me, what do you think is the best and highest use of this here? And I'm just going to open it up. If you have something to share, great. If you don't, it's totally fine. But I'd love to just get some initial thoughts from folks so I can get a sense of where your interest and momentum is, and then we can integrate that with these other pieces, and I think figure out how best we all move forward. So what do you think the best, highest use of this work group is to advance us to get to be leading states for enrollment in SNAP and WIC?
I'll offer just an idea. I think this is definitely the, related to the blueprint effort in general, but to this work specifically with the work group's focus around increasing enrollment in SNAP and WIC. Oh, this is Todd, by the way, Denver Human Services. I think that just my observation is that there is no shortage of great ideas and efforts and momentum. What I worry about, and even in my own community, is that there's so much going on that it's not sort of centralized or aligned in a way that can really maximize its effectiveness. And I think that this effort, being a statewide effort with state leaders in the room and others, that maybe we can create that leadership, kind of that centralized leadership around this, and really, and maybe that timing is working well too with the change in administration at the governor's office to pick some priorities and really put those forward with the great ideas that are already out there.
This is Jack with CCLP. I agree with what Todd said, and I also just wanted to reiterate a point that Anya and Alexis mentioned earlier, which is that the state has recently begun reviewing all 200 plus pages of Colorado SNAP regulations, and almost everything that isn't federally prescribed is on the table for reconsideration. And the fact that this is coinciding with this group forming, I think, presents a remarkable opportunity where if there are certain specific policy goals that this group could rally behind, we have a unique window of time going into 2019 where we can really make a difference in trying to pass those changes that would improve access to SNAP and that would improve the average monthly allotment that folks get. And it's kind of an overwhelming challenge just because so many policies are on the table, but I would love to see this group actively plugged in to that state and county effort.
Can I just ask a question? Do you think, in my opinion, I think that, and please push back if this is not the case because I'm relatively new to this environment. Do you think that maybe that the services are centralized, however, they're just not aligned? Because I think part of the issue for individuals is going to that central location to get the services and the resources they need versus all of the agencies just being aligned together and figuring out how we could provide those services outside of that central location. Just a thought.
You know, I think it's a really good point, and I think that was one of the recommendations from the Denver SNAP Task Force is how do you meet people where they are, and how do we do more outreach and rely less on technology. And I think that the Hunger Free Colorado model, where they have an bilingual outreach worker in Denver Health Lobby, is much more successful than the hotline, and I think it's more personal, that they're bilingual. You can get same-day service. There are a lot of advantages to that, but I think you're absolutely right that needing to figure out where the right outreaches are. And then the other thing I was thinking about is if Metro Caring has an outreach person from either Denver Human Services or the Hunger Free Hotline, then what you need to do is communicate that to the community around it so people know where to go, and then how to get same-day access.
I would say I think this group has probably every type of avenue that we could help an individual, or by whatever means they would like to be served. We're representing, I think, a lot of those different avenues in this room. And I think there are a lot of very different strategies that will work. And it's really only when we put them all together that we're going to be able to reach everyone. And so I think this work group has the opportunity to really fit those puzzle pieces together. And I would love to see some sort of visual representation of the activities that are happening on the ground now, and where are we planning to go next. And, you know, are there gaps, you know, in the activities? Because I know we've looked at, you know, participation gaps, and really try to, as a team, you know, agree on what the next best thing to do is together. I would love to see that out of this group.
Folks who are joining us remotely, anyone can chime in on best and highest use of this group? Okay, great. I think this is great food for thought. The other piece that has continued to come up, and I heard in a lot of the small group discussion, and this is a piece where, to Elisa's point, I think a lot of people are doing this, trying to get some feedback from folks about how the system is working or not, what their experience in using the system is, and trying to figure out how some sort of way to bring some of that feedback or use together in terms of, again, there's a lot of these strategies happening. It sounds like there's a lot of work to try to gather that input together. Could this group be a way to sort of combine some of that in some way? Was the other piece I heard each group talk about at least a little bit. Great, thank you for that. I think this is some really good information for us to take back and distill and think about. And for all of you, when you get the notes, to do that same thing, because I'm really relying on all of your smart brains to help pull all this together and to put that puzzle together. That's why we're all here together. So a couple of pieces in our last 10 minutes. So I wanted to loop back to the work group leadership conversation that we had a little bit early. We brought up that as we originally talked about this, that there would be a work group chair or co-chairs that would help to create the agendas, facilitate between groups, do some of those little additional pieces. So I don't know if folks have had a chance to think about what that might look like or think about whether or not that's an opportunity for them. But I want to open up the floor a little bit for that leadership conversation as we wrap up our time together today. So are there thoughts about whether you would like to have a chair or a co-chair? Let's start with that. And then we'll think about folks who might be interested in talking through what those roles could look like. And then perhaps at the next meeting, we could sort of finalize some of that. But chair, co-chair, how have you seen this work well in the past? What do we need to be thinking about in terms of leadership for this group?
I think the idea of, this is Todd, co-chairs, I think can help each other kind of tag team the responsibility, particularly if people are having a hard time with, balancing their capacity with other obligations. So seems like something that I like. That's a good idea.
Okay. I think it is possible that we have beaten your brains into submission this morning, which is totally fine. So what if we take a stab at writing up just a little brief description of what that might look like? You can circulate that in advance of the next meeting. If you have interest in assuming one of those leadership positions, you can let us know, and then at the next meeting we'll have some more discussion, a little bit more structure around that, what that could look like, because I know for me it's always helpful to have a little bit more of a definition of what I might be signing up for. So we'll work on that in between meetings. So the other thing I wanted to cover today, before we move on to some specific next steps, this is a portion of the folks who are involved in this work group. As we know, not everyone will make every meeting. We appreciate that. Again, we're going to try to make it as possible as we can for everyone to be part of it, whether that's remotely or in person. We have thought about and talked about a number of ways to try to align schedules. You all participated in the poll that we sent out. I wanted to open it up to the group today because I am a big fan of relying on the wisdom of the group. Do you have thoughts about how best to get these meetings on the calendar moving forward? I'd also like to hear from you about timing and location. This was sort of a default as we have been meeting here, and the Health Foundation has been generous with the space. We do not have to meet here. We could move the meeting around every time if that would be helpful for folks. So I know there are folks coming from all different points in the community. We have folks who are out of this community. I'm happy to open it up to, do we want to move this around? Is a centralized location easier for folks? I'm open to that discussion. So 2 questions on the table for you. One is, how is it best to get availability and get these future meetings scheduled for you? Is that the kind of doodle poll we've been using, or is there another technology that is even better? We're totally, we can call each of you and have that conversation if you want us to do that. I'm not being facetious, like we can make that work if that's easier. But I want to hear from you how you'd best like us to reach out in terms of meeting scheduling. And then the other question is location. Move it around, have one spot, what you prefer.
I don't really have an opinion about how you schedule these. Good luck. However, I do think it'd be neat to be able, I think it'd be neat to actually meet at Denver Human Services so we could see the SNAP enrollment process, right? We're all talking about it, and we all know it. We know pieces and parts of this, but wouldn't it be cool if we could actually maybe start to have some of those experiences which we have recognized in a lot of the conversations are valuable, right? The lived experience is the most valuable information for anything to work. And so maybe we could have meetings in locations where we can start to see that and experience it ourselves. Yeah, I'm volunteering you to host a meeting is essentially what I think I'm doing, but I just think that would be a way to ground us a little bit more from the philosophical to the real. Maybe at Hunger Free we could be by the phone lines, and the people on the phone, they're in human services as well. So maybe something like that.
I'd be happy to host. Or if there are other locations that are, non-county where we might be able to see the actual work, or where folks need to go to get these kinds of services, I totally support that idea too. And would also just invite other county colleagues. We could go out to Arapahoe County with Kathy, or maybe even Mesa if we want to take a road trip with Michelle. I don't know. But,
we could get up the hell out of Denver.
yeah, so that's a great idea. I might also just throw out in terms of scheduling, I think doodle polls are probably always the easiest, but if maybe just picking a standing time to.
So that would be our goal.
Okay, yeah, I think that would help me.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'd like to pick a day and a time. we're just trying to figure out how to best figure out what that is. If we just like to get these on the calendar. And for the next couple of months, we foresee those as being monthly. That may change. It may end up being every other month. Or there may be subgroups that come out of this that are working on things, right? So for the next 2 or 3, I think a monthly would get our momentum headed in the right direction. So that's what we were thinking about in terms of time.
I would say I really like the idea of moving the meetings around. The only thing that I would add is that, especially because people are going to be joining remotely probably every meeting, having this technology set up makes it so nice. So if the technology can move to those places and facilitate, I'm sure that would be appreciated.
Thank you. Yes, we will always have folks joining us. Because we hope to continue to engage folks who are not physically here, and some of you may not be able to be physically here. Thank you. That's great. We would use that as one of our criteria.
That is one of the nice things about this location. I mean, I think that it's never the perfect place, but close to transit, the technology, the parking is really nice. That's not easy in other places. So
I think if it is really important for us to be, going to different places and spaces, it doesn't necessarily have to be the meeting. It could be that we arrange a separate, exactly. Like I've been to several of the offices to see how the workflow works in each one, and it's very illuminating and helpful and different in every office. So I definitely think that there's a lot of value in doing that, but perhaps it's not necessarily tied to the meeting.
This side of the room has been really quiet. as have the folks on the phone, so I just want to make space for that. Coming up on our timing here as well, so I just want to be mindful of people's schedules.
I'd like to make some observations. Sometimes you experience things and you don't recognize that you have. So toward the diversity piece about learning styles, I wanted to call out that you were asked to provide a picture. An individual said, I'd like to have a visual. I'd like for you to put the visual together. So be hearing that. I mean, that was a just straight outright request. There are some times where it's hard to determine if that, if they're just saying, draw me a picture. But in this case, it was very direct. We had another person talk about 200 pages going through step by step. That's a whole different kind of reading, So begin to really hear and ask if you need to. Did you actually mean that you want to see a flow chart? Because that changes what Michelle's work needs to be in terms of communicating back to this group in the way that you can get the most benefit out of it. There have been some words that have talked about lived experience. Most recently, where will the meetings be? I think it's very important that if you don't have lived experience, you don't beat yourself up about it. You just don't. So going and seeing what it might be like, you may never have that lived experience, but you can have a glimpse at it and to have a different kind of an understanding. It might be very interesting for you to adopt a pseudonym and call in and try to get on. Figure out what your family income is, make it up, and just try to see what it is. It might be interesting as we are trying to bridge what community work might be with policy work. You all are pretty much governmental, steady, to go see what it's like. I think that was mentioned. What are the organizations doing, and are they actually giving out all the correct information, not through their fault, but nonprofits don't have good, steady income all the time, people staying, people move, so it could be that someone's ineligible simply because the person had only been with the nonprofit for 4 days and is working really hard. So some of these things I would call for you to listen as you're going through. One other thing, I sensed it, and I could be off, but some people don't like process. And so in a meeting, and for those who may come to leadership of a meeting, brainstorming is wonderful for a whole lot of people, and they will do it. They'll be, at the pearly gates, still trying to figure and talk it through. So you may want to, in a meeting, say, this is the period of time that we are going to look at best practices, bring them in, get them down on a sheet, and we're going to set aside some time over here for brainstorming about these things, and so that you can really be sensitive to how you can actually maximize the best from every person that you're going to be working with.
So we're at the end of our time. I want to thank all of you. How all this comes together. So we will do a couple of follow-up items in order to get the next meetings. We will follow up with some ways to gather all of the great things that are happening, where those are going on, and how folks are going to go ahead. So we'll follow up with that. A couple of requests for you. Between now and the next meeting, I would love for you to revisit the notes from this meeting and think about the themes and the things that we talked about. And let that kind of sit in your brain and just still, and how does that come together? Right? Because if we are going to prioritize, that means some things are going to move to the top and some things are not, which is necessary. And give yourself some time to process in your way what that looks like. I would ask you to read those, think about it, process. The other piece is that we will get you a little bit of information about the leadership, the co-chair positions for this. I would like you to think about both if you are interested or if there's someone else in this group that you know that you think would be good, because we are going to address that. So give you the information between now and then. Anything else for the good of the group?
Hey, this is Kevin on Trailhead. So I just wanted to put your attention on these work group member sheets too. So please, this should be the second sheet in your little packet, but fill this out. If you're participating outside of your regular job duties, we do want to compensate you for your time. We have a few different ways you can do that. We have BC gift cards here with us today. So please fill that out. We'll work with you to compensate you however it works best. And then if we're compensating you as part of our legal duties, we will need to collect a W-9 as well. So you can give both of those to me. I have a folder of those W-9s will go directly to our finance team for safekeeping. So if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know.
And for those of you on the phone, you could take a PDF of a W-9 and a PDF or a scanned copy of the form? Okay. So for those of you remotely, and we will follow up with folks who couldn't join us today with the same information.
I'm sorry, and I have one final thing too. So we do have an evaluation survey that if you have a couple extra minutes, please do fill out. They are up there with the cookies, so grab one of those too on your way out. And for the folks on the phone, we will also be sending out a digital version as well. And one thing I did just notice that this says work group number 1, but know that we will know that this is work group number 4. So yes, please do fill this out. Huh?
You're testing our sharp.
Oh yes. Well, you're testing mine as well. And thank you all very much. Thanks,
Thank you. It's great to see everybody. Thanks on the phone. We are officially adjourning for today.